the advice for someone who is put in that position of being an unexpected leader, what would you say to that person?
Don't be afraid to not know what you don't know. I was very upfront with the young men of the troop about my lack of scouting skills, and that we were learning these things together sometime, and we had some more experienced hands around me to help. So that was huge. But I never hid from the fact that you're pretended to be something I wasn't. I think that's really key, and I think it translates really well now to a really challenging time for leaders in business environments, here in the age of the Great Resignation.
Why do you think that was the case initially? Like the opposite, basically. So why do you think it was the case that people felt like they had to hide what they didn't know previously?
I think it's something that comes with experience, but because I can remember, moving to Baltimore in my mid-20s to be program director of a radio station and managing a staff of, half a dozen or 7 people, every one of whom was significantly older than I was. So, your natural inclination is to, fake it and pretend that you're more experienced than you are. And in hindsight, that was a mistake. And I think just having some years on me by the time the Scoutmaster thing rolled around, helped, and you just develop, you get to a place where you're willing to say, look, this is it. This is what I know. This is what I don't know. And I need your help with this. And I think people appreciate that in any setting.
Do you think it comes from insecurity?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. I did want to ask you initially about the fact that you're an entrepreneur now. And is it right that going through that leadership experience actually helped you get into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, absolutely, it did. I don't think I would ever have had the guts to say, here I'm going downtown to file the paperwork to launch my company, and I'm going to come home and tell the state of Maryland to stop sending the unemployment checks, which I did. Had I not lived through the previous few years and been stretched and pushed out of my comfort zone by the scouting stuff. And that really is one of the main themes of the book, Leader by Accident, is the kinds of things that can happen when we do challenge ourselves and when we do the thing that we're afraid to do, or that scares us a little bit.
So what's the story of how you started your business?
So I had this job. I was the marketing and sales manager for a home improvement company here in Baltimore for not quite 21 years. And new owner took it over a year before, and that did not go real well. Much more detail about that in the book. But anyway, I found myself out of work, and I started to look for a job because that was all I ever knew how to do, was look for a job. And that was a good idea in theory, I guess, but honestly, there wasn't a whole lot of demand for a, then 51-year-old self-taught marketer. So I really, it was a difficult time. Our son was a year away from college. My wife had always worked a few part-time jobs, but I was the main breadwinner and provider of health care. And it was not a happy summer here in the Rafferty household. And then actually someone from the Scout troop who owned a local business came to me and asked me if I'd stop in and talk to him about his website and some other stuff. And then my brother-in-law, who lived out of state and ran a company in an industry I didn't even know was a thing, really, asked me to look over a proposal he had to redo his website. And then a former boss who had started his own company asked me to come by and talk about things. And I thought, well, wow, somebody's trying to tell me something here. Maybe there is a path. And the thing is, though, that I think the old Jim, the pre-scouting Jim, would have taken all that on as the side work and done it nights and weekends and whenever, and would have kept looking for a job until I found one, whether it was something I actually wanted to do or not. And, I think that those experiences that I had and stretching myself both as a leader and sort of in the physical sense in terms of the camping and the hiking and the things that we did, I said, let's do this. And as I said, went downtown, filed the paperwork and launched the company and just stepped off the ledge into entrepreneurship, and it turned out great. I love my work. I really thought that I would be sort of the home improvement guy because that was my background, but I have clients in all kinds of industries that, it's just, and that really is my favorite part is meeting new ones and learning about what they do and what makes them work and all that. That's been a lot of fun.
So are you in websites? Is that what you do?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. And that's another part of it that I love. Yes, I build websites for clients. I also, manage their email newsletters and their social media and still some traditional radio, TV, print, and just general strategy communication. How are we going to approach this? And, having that first conversation with a client who says, I need a website. And I'm like, well, okay, you need a website, but why? What's your business model? How does it work? Where does your business come from? Is this website going to drive new business, or is this website, had this conversation 2 days ago, this website is really a brochure, because that's not ever going to be a driver of your business because you're not in that kind of industry. So those conversations are great. Every client's different. Every day is different. And that's really what I love about my work.
And do you remember how you got your first client, first paid one?
Those 3 people who I just talked about, who all reached out to me, became my first 3 clients and remain that. 2 of them still are. The other one was until last year when that company changed hands. My brother-in-law remained my client for several years after he was not my brother-in-law anymore. So I was always kind of proud of that. But yeah, they, God bless them for sort of showing the way, and that led to others. And it's really all pretty much come from referrals from other people, which is great. I haven't had to go knock on doors, which is, a blessing.
So basically you saw an opportunity, and due to your, should we say, your leadership principles or your experience, you decided to go for it. Is that some good summary?
Yes, it is a good summary. And the other thing I think that gave me a little bit of maybe an edge was, I mentioned the new ownership and sort of surviving that for a year at the company where I worked. Well, the new ownership was kind of obsessed with consultants. We had a parade of consultants come through, and on the one hand, it was frustrating where over and over again, I would suggest doing things a certain way and sort of get ridiculed for it. And then the consultant would say the same thing, and, it would be gospel. But on the other hand, I sort of paid attention to how they carried themselves, and I knew what they charged and how they worked, and I saw how they interacted with the staff. And I think sort of paying attention during that year gave me a leg up when it came time to hang out my own shingle. Absolutely.